Hi everybody, it's me again, Martin. Another great video released by David Kurten, the leader of the Heritage Party today. He's talking about Ukraine, and all you telly watchers, right, that believe what you see on the news, that Ukraine is winning with the help of the Western world, is not correct. Russia is winning. They're about to completely take Bakhmut, and yeah, they're winning this war, but that's not what we're told by our political leaders. Look guys, in my opinion, and this is only my opinion, and I've done a lot of research over the years, you can track it all back to a number of families that have run this country for centuries. You've got your Rothschilds, your Rockefellers, your Carnegies. There's about a dozen main ones. They all hide at the moment behind a number of PLC companies. They're the shareholders of Vanguard and BlackRock and some others, but that's the main two. And you know, we're supposed to, monopolies are supposed to not be allowed, but no matter what PLC company you look at, you have a look who are the top, you know, the top ones in there. You'll see Vanguard and BlackRock up there, and these people hide. They're shielded behind these PLCs, and they're running the world with the banks. And everything that goes on and everything you see, pretty much, and it's all rotten, all tracks back to them. A lot of it's being instigated by the WEF, the World Economic Forum, of which Charles is a very public figure within that organisation, which is very concerning now he's been crowned. But anyway, look, this is a really good video by David. He explains things much better than I ever could, and you should have a listen to it. So I'll shut up now and let you watch the video.
Hey, good morning everybody. The war in Ukraine, or the conflict in Ukraine, whatever you like to call it, is continuing completely unnecessarily. Now, I'm going to reiterate what I've said before. This is a conflict that should never have started, and it could easily have been ended very soon after it started, because there were peace talks in April 2022 in Turkey, and Putin and Zelensky came to a peace agreement which was nearly implemented. But then, to my country's shame, the Prime Minister at the time, Boris Johnson, went to Kiev, to Zelensky, and I don't know what was said in private, but soon after that visit, then Zelensky said, no peace, we're just going to carry on. And the collective West escalated. They sent more weapons and more money to the Zelensky regime from that time on, and that's continued for a year or so. And in the last few weeks, that has accelerated, and the Prime Minister of the UK now has used that word. We need to accelerate support for the Zelensky regime so they can win the war. These are the words that he's using, and people in the collective West, in governments, are using as well. And this is completely the wrong thing to do. We should not be escalating or accelerating the conflict. Russia is winning, and they have been grinding away at the city of Bakhmut, or Artemovsk, whichever language you use to describe the city, for over 6 months. And they've nearly now taken the whole city in a brutal war of attrition around the city, which is like, you know, the trench warfare of the First World War. I mean, I can't imagine how awful it is for people who are on the front lines in there, you know, doing the bidding of Hunter Biden and Joe Biden and Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak and Jens Stoltenberg of NATO. That's what they're fighting for, these people, essentially, to keep the war going. But Russia is winning here, and what the mainstream media is saying is that Russia's losing. They've lost a lot of territory around Kharkov, around Kherson, and they're only advancing through Bakhmut at a few meters a day. Oh, this is it's a joke. What they've been doing actually is exactly what they want to do. What Russia wants to do is demilitarize Ukraine, and the losses in personnel, Ukrainian men who've been conscripted to be sent to the front lines, a lot of them just survive a few hours and then they're killed. But Russia has been grinding down the Ukrainian military. They have hardly any manpower left. And so once Bakhmut is finally all taken, which it will be within a few days, because there's only a couple of blocks left in the southwest of the city to be taken. They've taken nearly the whole city. Then there's just open countryside after that. So, then it takes on a whole different enters a different phase, if you like. Once Bakhmut is the key strategic city, that will have fallen within a few days, and then who knows what's next. So the Zelensky regime, Zaluzhny, his chief of military, the heads of state or prime ministers in the West, who are supporting this rather than trying to de-escalate and stop the slaughter, are desperate to keep this thing going, which is insane, because the more they keep this going, the more people are going to get slaughtered, both Russians and Ukrainians. And actually, they're actually sending NATO soldiers in. Well, they're not officially NATO soldiers there. They look like, they've been decommissioned and then they're being hired by private military companies. So they got the status of mercenaries, but, they know what's going on here. So, there's often reports of NATO officials being found or killed in Ukraine. They shouldn't be there, because they're always protesting, the leaders of the collective West, Sunak and Biden, Macron, etc., they're always protesting, we're not at war with Russia, we're just giving arms and guns and weapons to Zelensky. We're not actually involved. Well, of course they are, because you're giving the people the guns to fight the proxy war, and beneath it all, there are some people in the US deep state who want to effect regime change in Russia and split it up into lots of little statelets where they can control their resources and so on, which is the wrong, and it's the wrong future. It's an insane vision for the future. But so what's happening here is that Russia is clearly winning, but the West, instead of de-escalating, not the people of the West, but the people in the governments in the West who are using our military and our resources to continue this conflict. I want to make a distinction there, because they don't represent me as a person, and they don't represent the vast majority of people who don't want to continue this war. We want an end to this war. The people of the West want an end to this war. It's only the governments and the parasitical class who are making money out of it who want to continue this. So what's happening is, they could see that Russia is winning, because what's happening here is that Russia has been going very, very slowly through Bakhmut, and they don't appear to be winning from the angle of the reporting in the mainstream media, because they're saying, look, Russia's withdrawn from these vast swathes of territory and they're just fighting in this little city and they're not getting very far. But what they've been doing is totally decimating the manpower of the Ukrainian forces, and they've also been finding out where the weapons are stored and then shooting in the Kinzhal hypersonic missiles to blow up the arms dumps all over Ukraine. So last week you saw in, what's the name of the place? Khmelnytsky. massive explosion where a huge arms dump was blown up by a hypersonic missile, sending estimates of $500 million worth of weapons which have been sent from the West to Ukraine, including most likely depleted uranium shells, shamefully from the UK, to use in these Storm Shadow, no, not the Storm Shadow, to use in the Challenger tanks, tank busting shells, which we shouldn't have been sending to Ukraine. We should be sending depleted uranium to Ukraine. That's not what we should be doing. But the Russians have found where these are, and they've sent missiles to blow it all up. So that's $500 million of arms and ammunition blown up in one go. Then soon after that, they destroyed one of the two American sent Patriot anti-aircraft, air defense systems that they had. So that's another £1 billion of a Patriot air defense system, and all the missiles in it just blown up in one, in a few minutes. And that's what they did. And they're blowing up arms dumps and depots all around the country. So it's almost like as soon as the West is sending weapons into Ukraine, Russia is finding out where they are and blowing them up so they can't be used, which is very sensible of Russia. They're doing this, and they've nearly won Bakhmut. And so what's happening is the West, or the leaders of the West and NATO, are doubling down and doubling down and doubling down. They haven't got a reverse gear when they need to find a reverse gear, because they're not going to win by doubling down and doubling down. Every time they've done this, it hasn't worked, and they're just finding that the money, the weapons, and all the things that they've sent are just getting blown up. So, but what we've done in the UK, Rishi Sunak has said, oh, well, he's going to give, first of all, the Challenger tanks, and then depleted uranium shells, and then he's going to give these Storm Shadow long-range cruise missiles, which can be fired 300 kilometers, about 200 miles, deep into, behind the front lines. And some of them have been used already to target Lugansk, in the Lugansk People's Republic, which is nowhere near the front line. This is just killing civilians, which is, an escalation. And now, then he's saying he's going to give long-range attack drones. And then he's celebrating because Biden in America has yesterday, just before I'm making this video, saying he's going to send F-16 fighter jets to Ukraine. And Rishi Sunak is jumping up and down and saying, this is great, we're going to support this, and we're going to train Ukrainian fighter pilots to be able to operate these aircraft and escalate the war even more. So, we just need to stop this. What President Trump gave an interview a couple of weeks ago, and he said he could end this in 24 hours. And we need to end this because all that's happening is that people are getting slaughtered on both sides. And this has been what I've said from the beginning. This isn't something that just started in 2022. It's something that started in 2014. And essentially, the West, at the time, it was the Obama-Clinton regime, or Biden, Clinton's obviously there behind the scenes. She was the Secretary of State. They were the ones that instigated a coup in Ukraine in order to try to bring Ukraine into the EU and NATO, whereas it would be far wiser to just say, let Ukraine be neutral. There's no strategic value for the West in Ukraine. Let it be neutral. Let's get on and develop a friendship with Russia, and that's the right future for the world. But they didn't do that. They instigated a coup in Ukraine in 2014, and then this is just a continuation of that that whole sequence of events, and we are where we are now. So this so-called Ukrainian counter-offensive was also supposed to begin on the 30th of April, and a lot of people in, the cheerleaders for the escalation in the West were saying, look, the counteroffensive is going to start. We're going to take back Bakhmut, and we're going to take over the areas that Russia has, has taken over with the military, because there are essentially mainly Russian-speaking people in those areas who want to be part of Russia. But the West is going to take that back, including Crimea, and support this great Ukrainian counteroffensive. But that fizzled out into absolutely nothing straight away. There hasn't been an effective counteroffensive because the Ukrainian armed forces are being ground down to almost nothing through 6 or 7 months of war of attrition in Bakhmut, and that's the situation. And whatever you hear from the Western mainstream media, and whatever escalation you hear about from the people who are leaders in the West at the moment, hopefully they won't be for too much longer, but at the moment they're talking up escalation. Whatever you hear from them, they completely ignore the reality that the armed forces, the manpower in the Ukrainian armed forces, has just been decimated and ground down to almost nothing. So they can send loads and loads of weapons over, but there's hardly anybody in the Ukrainian armed forces left to operate them. And after Bakhmut falls, I think you're going to see this go a lot quicker, and the Russian armed forces take a lot more ground a lot more quickly, and perhaps take back the grounds that they've retreated from earlier in the year. So this Ukrainian counteroffensive just didn't happen, and it fizzled out. They didn't take back anything of Bakhmut. They're still nearly lost the whole city of Bakhmut. In the south, there was no advance down through Zaporozhye into Mariupol and so on, or towards the Crimea, like they said was going to happen. Nothing there happened at all. And now you can see that things are about to change. So what you're getting at the moment is an extreme doubling down, which is crazy, and it's not going to work. And it's going to waste a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more lives, which we shouldn't be doing. So, once again, I will call and say, as the leader of a political party in the UK, as the leader of the Heritage Party, stop escalating this conflict, de-escalate, and support the peace negotiations wherever they are. The latest attempt for peace negotiations have been offered by South Africa. So let's get behind that and try to help these two nations, Russia and Ukraine, end the conflict and stop the killing. That's the number one thing that we need to be doing, not escalating anymore. There's only one other party political leader I can see in the UK who's saying the same thing as me. That's George Galloway. Now, we're at the opposite ends of the traditional political spectrum, but he's saying the same things as me about this Ukraine conflict, that we just should not be in getting involved in it, and we should certainly not be escalating it in the UK or in the West. So, God bless him for being on the right side of this issue. And I will say that as well, and I'll continue to say that. We need to de-escalate and stop the slaughter.
Yeah, that was another really good video by David. He explains things so well. And for the people that are watching the media, you really need do a bit of your own research on this. David's been very careful here in what he says. He would have said a lot more, but unfortunately, platforms like YouTube, Facebook, they take down anything that goes against the narrative. Lots of things that goes against the narrative. Now, we do have freedom of speech, but that is being eroded. The Andrew Brigden, we had a video taken down on that. So, the guy never said anything wrong, but that's the world we live in. So obviously, remember, David's being very careful with his words here. and you need to research. And it's no good researching really on YouTube. The best places are places like Rumble, Telegram. You'll get much more information if you start to look on these, and there's others out there. There's others out there as well. So anyway, guys, look, the only way you're going to change this is with a vote. And voting for the blues, the reds, the greens or the yellows, nothing's going to change. They're all in the same, you're voting for the same party. You need something different, and the Heritage Party is. It's an honest party, and it's for the people. You know, now if you're not feeling like the government doesn't care about you, and you know, even us, we're being controlled. You know, the Western world, they've been bullies to the rest of the world for a long time, and it's all beginning to change out there. I see lots of things happening. De-dollarization. There's a lot of countries moving away from America. They're fed up of being trampled on by this country, and the Western world is all behind it as well. So you know, the only power you've got is with your vote. Yeah. And so in about 18 months time, you need to seriously think about who you're going to vote for. And like I said, one of the top 4, that's not the answer. You've got to go outside of that. Right, I'm going to leave it at that, and I will be speaking to you again real soon. Thanks very much. Bye now.